All right, now before we can move on to our baseboard, we have to do our casings because the baseboard is actually going to stop before we get to the casing. And again, we're ignoring this first wall. We're ignoring this front wall, and I'm not going to worry too much about it. But we do want to I would use the same casing for the doors as you use for the windows. So let's start with the doors. I've gone ahead and I have just drawn out one of the casings. I've chosen this one here, the CAS08, because I didn't want to bore everybody by going through that whole tracing process three separate times. But really, you just have to worry about crown, casing, and base out of these. Chair and handrail are good to have just in general in the future in case you want to use them. One thing I would like to note is that these little window arches here are actually pretty close to each other. So if I open this up and look at how, if I take my tape measure and see how wide that is, I really only have 10.5 inches to work with. So pretty much every casing here is going to work, or almost every casing, except for the really, really big ones, like the 5 5/8 or the 5.5, or especially the 5 7/8. Those are going to actually end up overlapping if you use them in the window application. So I would try to stick with something that's around 5 inches or smaller as far as the casing goes. Okay, that said, let me go ahead and take this profile. I've also gone and once I copied this over here, I painted white onto both sides so that now when I pull this so that it opens up into the model, it won't bring that material with it, and I won't have to repaint it once I go in. So just wanted to make a little note of that. All right, I'm copying this. I'm coming back into my model. I'm going to go over to this first door here, and I'm going to paste it in place. Now I need to rotate it all the way around 180 so that it is in the right orientation. And I'm going to put this right up against the door. Now in a real door casing, you actually have 0.25. You have a little bit of a space there. So I'm just going to move it 1/4 of an inch away from that opening. This is the same door repeated. So I'm gonna leave that in place for now. And I'm going to copy this into a different location. Again, I'm going to rotate this now. This is going to be used for my first window. So rotate it 90 degrees. And I'm going to move up onto this window. I'm not going to leave that little gap on the windows here because I don't have to worry about it as much on a window. So I've got this in place, and where else is this going to repeat? It's going to repeat here for this exact same window. So I'm not going to have to do follow me twice for this. I only have one more location where this happens, and that's this arched window in the back. So I'm making another copy, and I'm placing it at the bottom of this first arched piece. And I'll be repeating this casing over and over again for these arches because they're all the same. So I have 3 different places where I have to now use follow me. Let's do the door first. Tracing with a line this time because I don't want it to go all the way around. I just want it to go from the floor up to the top, then follow to the other side, then back down. And I'm going to pull this path out into place so you can see it a little better. So I'm just moving it along the green. So this time I'm moving it along the green, but it's still perfectly lined up with the casing. If I were to move it off like this, now it's not. But because I just moved it along the green axis, it's still referencing the exact same shape and the exact same path. I'm going to right click and explode that casing there. Now I'll double click on the path and notice there's no line at the bottom. Engage follow me, and then click once on that casing. That profile, I should say. Now I can triple click to group it. And because I'm going to be putting this in the same place over here, I'll right click and I'll make this a component because if I one day decide to change it in any way, I want it to be the exact same for all doors. I'm going to use this interior point as my reference point because it's my easiest spot to click to. And I'm going to make a copy and place that in place. Now I'll delete that path because who needs it? We already used it. Let's go for the window. We're going to put a stool at the bottom of the window at a certain point, so let's not worry about the bottom. We're just going to treat this the same way we would treat a door. So I'll start with my line. I'm clicking from point to point all the way around. Now let me show you something. If I explode this now and then try to double click on this or triple click on it, sometimes I can actually select the piece as well, and that can be a little bit troublesome. So because it's touching, I'm not going to explode it yet. I'm actually going to move the path out into place. I think SketchUp has gotten a lot better about Follow Me. In some of the earlier versions, if the path was touching the face of one of the lines of the profiles, it would actually become really, really hard to follow the path. I think it's gotten a lot sharper about it, so it's not as much of a worry. But to be safe, it's always kind of nice to get the path slightly away if you're actually at the point of an edge of a profile. Okay, so path is out of the way. This is exploded. Now I'm going to select my path, engage Follow Me, and click once, and it's going to follow that path. Don't need the path anymore, so I can double click on it to delete it. Triple click on the new casing shape we've made and group it, and then right click and make it a component so that when we finally one day, if we ever decide to change this in any way, it'll change on both. And then again, same story. I'm copying it from using this inner point as a reference, and I'm going to go straight around to this and snap it to that point. Okay, what's next? Last but not least, we have this arch. I'm going to do something a little bit different this time. I'm going to copy this entire wall out into space, and I'm going to delete it. Everything that I don't need except for that path. If I have something that's very precise, like an arch like this, or if I've got a crazy design that I need to follow that path, I want to make sure that I can just exactly replicate it. So let me lock this and hide everything else around it so it's really obvious what I'm doing. I'm going to open this up, select everything except for that path, and delete it. And then I have to look at it from the other side and select the stuff that I can see from the side and delete that. So all that's left at the end of the day is that shape. I didn't have to redraw it. I was able to use that existing shape to get my path in place. I just unhit everything. Let me delete my guides. Let me lock this. I'm going to lock the shape as well. So I've selected the profile and I've selected the path, and I'm going to lock it. You don't have to do this. I'm just doing this so that it's obvious what I'm doing. I'm going to select everything in the model. I'm going to hide, and then I'm going to unlock. Okay, so now what I have is I have a path that is perfectly in line. It doesn't look like it, but it is perfectly in line with this profile. I can explode them both by selecting and exploding. Select the entire path, engage Follow Me, and then just touch on the face that you want it to follow. Okay, so that profile follows along that arch. Double click on that and make it a group, or triple click I should say, delete that path, and then select this and right click and make it a component. Now I can unhide. Now all I have to do is copy, move copy, down 1, and then I'm going to do times 4. Let's go ahead and look back at our scene and see how we're doing. Great, we've got a lot more detail than we started out with. So we've got the beginnings of some serious molding going on, and our casings for our windows and our doors are in place.